Are you looking to start a brand new Bannerlord campaign but don't know what mod to play? Well, today's video has that sorted for you, as we're going to be diving in with a newly released Calradia Rework mod. This mod goes ahead and keeps the game still very much base of values, so don't worry if you don't enjoy the big overhauls that completely change the map, the style of combat, etc. This is a great kind of vanilla plus mod, and basically what it does is it goes ahead and replaces all the factions with unique cultures, changes up the armors and weapons and unit trees for each of the factions, and actually just provides a really dynamic new experience because the way they've created each of the kingdoms is very cool, and there's plenty more to mess around with, all with their own unique cultures. I will also mention as well that this mod is very lightweight. The only ones that this one requires is of course Calradia Rework, the mod itself, open source armory, and then Swardian armor and harmony. It's only them 4 mods, so again, if you're not looking for some big mod list that's going to crash a million times, this is perfect for you because again, it's just them 4 mods. The armor mods aren't going to go ahead and cause crashes, so you should be in a really good situation. And then if you want to build upon that and add more stuff, you definitely can with stuff like RBM, because both the open source armory and Swardian armor have RBM counterparts to them, so there's plenty of stuff you could do. And I would imagine you could probably even add in like banner kings to this or something along them lines if you want to go really hard. But as you can see, we currently have the default 6 nations that we're used to, and then we have an additional 5, and each of these do offer again unique stuff. I also like the way that they've gone ahead and created this little artwork in the center. It's nice to see. I would also love to see some more additions to like the actual faction specialties to kind of boost them up. I think that'd be a nice little addition, and something I love seeing in mods when they have kind of their own sort of play style behind them. So here we are on the campaign map, and this is what Calradia looks like. And as you guys can see, it has dramatically changed, many kingdoms rising and falling, and it's really different. I think probably the only faction that is intact really is going to be this Northern Empire faction. Besides that, I think every other one is like very different in their makeup, which again is cool. I like to see that because again, it just kind of creates different borders, different dynamic stuff, and we'll basically go in and take a look at every single faction. A few factions have very similar unit trees. Again, this is the first release of the mod, but it's still cool to kind of see them at least having very different unique cultures and play styles. So let's start off with this faction off into the east. This is very much, I feel like it's kind of more of like a Korean than Chinese faction, because this type of armor is a bit more Korean, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong, let me know down below in the comments, but they look really cool. Again, I like this kind of basic civilian armor, and they go up and just have like a heavy focus on crossbows, and they even have crossbow cavalry as well, which is pretty deadly. And then for their noble cavalry, I mean, look at this bad boy right here. That's a glaive. So some really powerful cavalry, going to be able to rip through anything, which again is cool to see kind of the uniqueness of that faction, heavily focused around crossbows and that kind of elite heavy glaive cavalry, whereas the infantry going to be struggling a little bit more. And that's going to be important because the faction that they're probably going to be engaging the most is down here in the west, which is taking up part of where the Aserai used to be and the Empire. So it's a nice little mix between them, and this is going to be kind of your traditional Crusader faction. As we can see, they have pretty elite heavy infantry, they're going to have some decent melee cavalry, and then again they also have some kind of lancer hybrid crossbow cavalry, and that's going to be supported by their infantry, which is basically like a crossbow halberd unit. Again, kind of very unique and different. You would expect the Crusaders to have maybe a heavy cavalry, but there's a lot of factions with that noble heavy cavalry, so I like the idea that this one, they just have like an elite crossbow mounted foot infantry, and that's kind of cool. It's going to make up a different playstyle when you check these guys out. To the north of them, we do have an entire cavalry based faction, so again, the Korean style faction is going to be surrounded by a lot of good foes, and yeah, they start off with just normal recruits, and then they go into just some insane stuff. I mean, look at that sword that this faction has. That is one crazy heavy saber. If you look at the weapon length of it as well, it's going to just do so much crazy stuff. 139, that's as long as most swords, which is kind of cool. We're also mixed in with a pretty elite cataphractic archer unit, and then just a normal lancer one. I think I'm going to be mainly going with these guys. Imagine these guys dismounted in a siege battle would be very cool if they could swing that weapon. And then for their noble unit, they do have an elite horse archer. Again, pretty good stats, 300 bow, 260 riding. When you get to that max tier, they're going to be able just to fire off so many shots at the enemy. Oh, something I should mention as well, which I actually didn't. We also have Calradia Expanded. That is another mod that you do use. It just goes ahead and it basically expands the campaign map a little bit, adds in like these islands down here in the south, like right here, which is kind of cool again for its own unique faction. This would be kind of a cool way to kind of work up from just one side. and again, you can kind of see their roster. I think this is very much the same as most of the Empire faction to the north of them, but it's still really cool nonetheless to have them here, and that just adds in a bit more detail to the campaign map. You can see around here you have like farmlands, better roads and stuff, the Imperial roads scattered around. So again, it's a little bit of a heavier mod, but it shouldn't cause you any issues when it comes to crashing, and it just does make the map look so much better than vanilla. So in the north now, we do have another faction. Again, this is going to be your kind of traditional Viking faction, as you guys can see. Some really cool armors scattered across their units. They have heavy cavalry, and their elite main line is going to be made up of these berserkers. So not really a lot of just like base heavy infantry for the most part. This kind of hybrid aggressive unit is going to be a mix between having that two-handed weapon and then a spear infantry. So going to be interesting to see how these guys play. Their noble unit is also heavy infantry. Then as we scatter more to the west, again, this black faction right here is going to be another base medieval faction, but a little bit lighter on the armors. Again, I mean, that big two-handed weapon, this model loves to give heavy cavalry big two-handed weapons, and I think it's going to be like a bit better actually on combat, because I feel like the AI does such an awful job with a spear at stabbing, whereas swinging this big two-handed sword I think will actually be really, really effective. They also have a very cool looking foot infantry with the pike and also the mace to get that heavy armor in, supported by some crossbows. We can also see their foot infantry is really cool as well. I think this is probably the faction I would look to play, because they have a really unique starting position, some really powerful cities, and then yeah, elite heavy infantry like this, which just looks super. Again, one thing I'll mention also is I love the way that like every faction, sometimes when modders create stuff like this, the banners are really hard to tell who's who, but I like the idea that everything is just very similar. Like it's custom banners which look really nice, but everything is black and like this faction is just black and white, this one is red and gray, this one is green and gold, you know, this is blue and yellow. Like it's just a very nice way when you got this many factions. It's just a good way of just making everything feel very unique and standard. As we make our way into Valandia, both of these factions are pretty similar in their units. They are just like medieval, and they kind of vary in the style, so I guess you can kind of pick the medieval faction that you kind of like the most of, but they all do have their differences in their armors. The unit trees are a bit similar, and that's something I would like to maybe see the modder kind of go in future updates, is just making them feel a little bit uniquer, because again, they all do very much, none of them share the same type of armor, which I love that attention to detail. That, you know, some factions are much more focused around plate, like this faction is much more focused around like leather and mail, and each of the units like look very similar in that, so that's a really nice detail. But yeah, I'd love to see more diversity in the unit trees themselves, just to kind of give you again that different feel when playing them. But yeah, both these factions are kind of very similar, kind of different types of medieval factions. Over here we have the Battanians. Again, they're going to kind of make up that kind of like that nomadic kind of woodland warrior, heavy armor, Celtic style. Lots of javelins. I imagine this unit is really scary with double javelins right there. That's going to do a lot. That's 10 javelins they'll be able to get off, so a heavy skirmisher with a cavalry force right there. And then finally we make our way down into the Aserai lands, and again, I like kind of the setup of this faction being kind of, again, it's just the unique positioning of this really kind of creates some different stuff. Like this kind of more, I guess it's more of an African faction, is surrounded by 3 people on this side, probably all going to be collapsing in, and then you also have this faction off into the east as well, probably going to be hitting them. And then of course you can go through the naval travel, so this faction could come in as well. So there's a lot of pressure. Like it's just going to create a very unique and interesting dynamic, I think. But if we take a look at their soldiers, you can see again heavily focused on cavalry and archers. One heavy cataphract line to the west. We have one heavy horse archer line. Okay, I say heavy. This is actually quite a light horse archer, but we're going to be able to output some decent damage with that. And then their heavy archers here, which again are going to probably mix up to be an infantry unit as well, I imagine. Yeah, even the tier 2s can probably do a pretty decent job here. So you're going to probably want to kind of set your line up, fire a bunch of arrows, and then just tell them to hold fire, form a shield wall, and get stuck into melee. Their stats aren't actually awful either. Their stats are actually pretty decent. This is more of an infantry unit than an archer unit, so it's kind of, again, unique playstyles, which I love. I love that. And then for their noble unit is going to be more of a heavier infantry with that lance, going to be able to kill a lot of cavalry, which is going to be important because this mod has a lot of cavalry embedded in the rosters. And then the final faction we have to look at right here is going to be, they actually have any units there, is going to be right here. And again, they're going to be having a pretty standard heavy infantry line right here. Again, very different to the other rosters with a horse archer line stuck in their heavy axes. Again, this is probably one of your more standard units, but The units look great, right? Again, and I love this style. Like, it's just kind of keeping that in. You know, they kind of have the similar armors and it just fits. They've done a really good job at creating these factions. So now let's dive into a quick battle. I'm going to probably get a bunch of units from these guys up here in the north, and we'll go find an enemy that's a little bit different. Maybe we'll go end up fighting one of these factions off here, like maybe the Chinese or the Korean style faction, and we'll put these soldiers to the test. Okay, so we're in a small little battle right now. I thought I'd dive in and basically take a look at some of the soldiers. As you guys can see, this is not the faction I wanted to play as. I was having a few issues with the crashing. I think there's a little issue with one of the armor pieces for them higher tier soldiers. So we just dived into a battle right here. Again, you guys can see this is going to be one of the Western factions that we're playing with. And I just took kind of like a basic setup of soldiers, and we're going up against the Viking faction, which we should be able to provide us with a decent challenge. So if we get a little closer to them, again, you guys can see them in battle. We're just going to be basically equipped with heavy armor, lots of axes, and I'm really interested to kind of see how they're going to perform actually in battle, because the unit balancing is going to be completely different when it comes to these type of battles. You can really start to see a lot of their cavalry getting stuck in here, causing us some issues and trying to bring us down. I think it's time to go and send the cavalry off. We do have aggressive cavalry, so let's go charge them in. The infantry are going to hold the line, and we kind of need to position our crossbows, because that's going to be the main way we win, right, is using these crossbows to our advantage. So let's bring them around. Infantry can form a nice little tighter shield wall and go a little bit longer on the formation, just so we don't get overrun. The cavalry is going to charge off, and we're mainly hoping for these crossbows to set up here and just fire into the sides of them. You can see that their infantry, their heavy axes with them spears are moving up. Crossbows are actually a little bit kind of pushed up a little bit more, and you can see their cavalry coming in as well. The battle's going to be pretty brutal. Again, remember that this is going to be set up mainly without RBM, so it's going to be a very different play style. But the crossbows on the side now that they're set up should do a great job, and we just need to basically take down this cavalry. I'm actually going to get my infantry to be a bit more aggressive now and go a bit more like into the enemy, because the enemy are very split up right now, and I think we actually outnumber them very heavily. So let's get stuck in here. Again, they have better quality, but our crossbows are set up, and our crossbows are actually really decent when it comes to the melee. I say that we just got absolutely slaughtered by their units, I think. I don't know. It's going to be a close one. We're not really putting many tactics into this one. Their archers are also doing a lot of damage. I definitely did not give them as much credit as maybe I should have. Unfortunately, my men are a bunch of cowards, but that's fine. Again, I want to just kind of show you a little look-see of the units themselves. Again, these weren't the coolest ones I could find, but the other ones were having a little bit of trouble loading. I'm sure that will be fixed, but just keep that in mind. I think it was more of the super high tier 6s I was trying to bring into battle, but I just couldn't get to work. So I think you'll be fine. I didn't have any problems playing with the lower tiers. It was just more of the higher tiers that were, and there was only 2 of the factions that were causing me a few crashes here and there. Sometimes they would work, sometimes they wouldn't. So just keep that in mind. I'm sure if that is a major issue, or if it's just maybe something wrong with my load order, I'll obviously look to sort that out. But just wanted to make you guys aware, this is definitely a cool mod worth checking out regardless of that. And I'm sure if you do run into that crash, if you could provide the report to the modder, I'm sure they'll be able to get it sorted out and fixed, because yeah, this is a ton of fun. I'm really enjoying the style of gameplay. I'm really enjoying the way that the empires are set up, the uniqueness of each of the factions, and it doesn't, it's not like anything crazy. It's not like this is a adds in a billion things. It's kind of still very vanilla plus-esque, which I like. So yeah, go check out this mod. I'll leave a link to it down below in the description. Make sure you drop a like and a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.